and but for the lower cervical spine. So this is like a modified Gonstead adjustment, and this is really the same as what I showed you on the Atlas. So you're going to use your thumb web again. Okay. You're going to take the other side of the head, and I really want you to sort of kind of go back and remember your full Gonstead thing, that you're going to tuck the chin so that you can feel that segment. You're going to provide a little bit of traction on this side. You want to open up the spine so you have somewhere to move that vertebra. And when you're doing this, you want to come down the neck far enough that your hand is in this position, not like this. If you're up here at the head, your arm ends up doing this, right? And that makes it very uncomfortable for you, and you're going to hurt your wrist. So remember in Gonstead, you had that sort of uncomfortable feeling that you're like, I don't know what to do with this shoulder. When you turn your hand down to protect the spine, you do so not by doing this. You do so by rotating your shoulder out, so it's out here in front of you. You want to protect that spine and have somewhere to catch your adjustment, right? So a lot of times we have a lot of trouble using that index contact on the spine's process. So you can't really do this if there's a superiority to the adjustment because it won't fix a wedge. But if you have a straight PR or an LP, you can do this adjustment really nicely, and it's just a thumb adjustment. So we're going to take our thumb, and I'll just set up down here in the mid-cervical spine so you can see. And what I'm going to do is set up on the articular pillar, but really I'm taking my whole thumb on that articular pillar. So my skin slap, I'm going to start from the other side of the spine that I want to adjust from. So I'm doing an RP. I'm going to start over here on the left, and I'm going to take my skin slap all the way around. Okay, you see that? I'll set up on the other side in a second. And I'm going to just do what I always do. I'm going to tuck her chin. So I'm moving the body this way. I'm going to provide a little bit of traction here, and then watch this. I'm not just doing this. I'm feeding in. See that? My body comes in and sets up the adjustment. And I'm going to aim right for loop. There. Okay? You feel that? Mm-hmm. It's a really, really nice move. So my line of drive, depending on where I am on the spine, because I'm always talking about, for me, I'm always talking about the disc. So I'm either going to go where? I to S in the upper cervicals, right? Straight away in the mid-cervicals, and S to I in the lower cervicals. So also this works really well if you have trouble getting that the index contact on a lower cervical. You kind of take your thumb this way, and then you can kind of shoot down here. That works really nice on the lower cervicals. Okay? I'll set up on the other side just so you can see. You had lab this morning, right? So we'll try not to make anything move so her partner has. So again, I have my thumb here. I started off on the right. I took my skin slack all the way around to my left. I'm going to tuck the chin, and I'm just using my pec here to stabilize her head. And see how I leave my finger on her chin? This gives me head control. All right, then when I've got her head, then I can let it go. Traction, and bring it in. Right towards Kyle. Thrust. Okay? How did that feel? Good? Good. Okay. Let me just, since we have her in the chair, we're going to do a seated cervical from in front of the patient. Now, some of the textbooks that you're going to see have this cervical setting up like this, from back here or back here. That requires a lot of rotation. When my husband first came home from adjusting class, he said, I got to show you this move because you're going to freak. And he showed me this move where he did this. He wanted to do this. And I said, not in your life. You never do that to me. Who's taking pictures? Don't take a picture of that. All right, so I'm going to show you how to do it a little modified. I like to, again, you notice that I don't use a whole lot of rotation when I'm adjusting. How many people have found that? Do you like that? Is that beneficial? It's kind of weird because you haven't learned it before, but I think it's easier on the patient. So I'm just going to ask you to put your knees down for me a little bit. Now, depending on what you're doing here, you have to be a little careful if you have male to female, female to male sort of issues going on. Just explain what you're going to do. I often like to, depending on how tall the person is I have them seated, with their legs open a little bit, and I'm going to straddle their leg. Okay? So it gets a little dicey if you have a big guy in front of you, because you're getting into some personal space. So just be aware of that. But you can be at the side of the patient too. What I'm trying to go for basically is a 45-degree angle to the patient. And usually the way someone sits is that perfect line of drive. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is you have two choices. You can use your index finger, you can use your chiropractic index finger. Most of the time what's been said is that on the upper spine, people like to use their chiropractic index finger because then you have somewhere to rest the head. And the lower spine, people like to use their index finger. I personally use my chiropractic index finger the whole spine. It's up to you. When you take your contact, you're going to take your skin slack around to the articular pillar, and you're going to laterally flex the head, and you're going to adjust here. So it's right down the shaft of your arm. You have to do a little bit of something with your hands. You can't just set up and leave your hand like this. It's kind of like a press into your palm. Okay, so I'm pressing, I'm engaging my hand without tightening up my forearm. Okay, so I press forward so I really feel that contact there. Okay, I know I've seen some of you guys doing this, so somewhere someone's taught you this, right? Some of you. So I'm taking my skin slack around. Okay, I've got the articular pillar. I'm going to laterally flex. I'm going to provide a little traction on this side again. So a little traction here under the occiput. Laterally flex, rotate toward me. See that? And now I'm just going to pull right here. So I'm just pulling my arm in. Okay, and there's always a little bit of a flick. Right? We talked about that whole idea of the arc position. Okay, I'll set up on the other side. Okay. So again, middle finger, engage it a little bit. Okay, take your skin slack around. Okay, this side, I'm using this contact to provide a little bit of traction to my patient. Traction, laterally flex, slightly rotate away, and then pulling down my arm here. Okay.
Would that be for body right?
Body right or body left. Now,
The one you were set up on.
that would be a body right, okay, or an RP or a PL. Now you could also, if they had a flexion restriction, that would be a right lateral flexion restriction in this situation. And because you're inducing right lateral flexion, that's going to be part of the adjustment. Right, so you're going to get that correction as well.
So you can do this with the wedge.
You can do this with the wedge, yeah. From the back, you can't really clockwise or counterclockwise with your thumb, so you can't really take care of a wedge very efficiently with your thumb. Okay. Any questions about those two? Yeah.
If you're doing the lateral flexion ones, would you still use that contact from in front, or would you do it from, like on that side of your arm, would you use your right hand to reach from behind, or would you reach in front of her neck to do just the lateral
If it was a
flexion?
straight lateral flexion, well, okay, there's,
Well, I mean, I thought that's what you were saying, is like lateral flexion.
oh, no, I'm saying that lateral flexion becomes part of the adjustment because what I'm doing is this. And as I come around and I'm providing traction, it's going to, and my line of drive is down here, it's going to get rotation and lateral flexion in the adjustment. So you don't have to do two different things. If you have a subluxation that you feel is more lateral flexion than rotation, you can move your contact a little more lateral to take more lateral flexion if you want to. Okay? That's what you learned before in Diversified 1, right? Your contacts for lateral flexion restriction were more lateral, yes?
Yes.
So you can just modify this the same way. Okay? Is that good? Make sense? Okay. Can I have, we'll give your